What if they held a Eucharistic Congress and hardly anybody came? It's the prediction we've been giving, the question we've been asking since this thing was announced. The U.S. bishops are spending something like $50 million for these conferences that are happening with events in football stadiums. They believe that 50,000 people will come to the final event. And if this weekend's outing was any indication, they're going to be sorely disappointed. Now, you may have seen some of the footage of this. There is one unequivocally good part. I will never, ever say a negative thing about Eucharistic processions. Processions, the most blessed sacrament, held aloft, held on high in a monstrance of the faithful and being led by priests and deacons and others in formal Catholic attire. I will never say a negative thing about that. And there are 4 of these happening from various places, all leading to some central point where they're going to be having their big event. But there was the launch of an event here. And it can be kind of blackpilling for those of you who will watch this. Blackpilling means it just sort of gives you a very down, it brings you down and gives you a cynical, almost sort of nihilistic look on how things are going. And I don't mean to do that here, but it can lead to that. So we're going to go to show you some of the good stuff first. So you see the procession. They're religious here. Let's rewind this for you. I'm going to have this muted just to make sure we don't run into copyright issues here. But you see, you'll never see me say a negative thing about this kind of thing. We need more of this as a Catholic people in the United States, anywhere else you're watching this. More of this. If you wanted to have just organized efforts at having public processions, the most blessed sacrament, and the proclamation of our Lord's kingship and the rest of it publicly, wonderful. Please, more of that. You see a lot of this kind of footage, and it's unequivocally a good thing. But we go to our first story. And you're going to see some rather interesting reporting on this because they make this sound like an unequivocal success. And we got reporting from people who were at one of these events that they were holding over Pentecost weekend, and you will find out they weren't. So the headline from the National Catholic Register, which is the print online news arm of EWTN. Establishment friendly, mainstream, beyond anything else. And their headline is Bishop Barron, Father Schmitz helped light Eucharistic fire at Minnesota Congress. The Congress was the prelude to the start of the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage's Marian Route, which begins with Pentecost Sunday Mass and culminates at the National Congress in Indianapolis. And they give you an interesting photograph there. I'm not sure where they got that from because I've got reporting that tells you that this is not accurate in the slightest. So, but they were expecting a certain amount of people to show up, and it didn't happen. They were expecting a rather large amount of people to arrive at this Eucharistic Congress, and they were sorely disappointed by it. Now, I know what it looks like to attend in the sort of the post-conciliar kind of framing of things, events that draw large crowds. Back in 2017, it was 2017, the Pope Francis gave the authority to the Archbishop of Oklahoma City to lead the elevation of now blessed Stanley Rother to being a blessed. And they did this at a stadium in Oklahoma City in an adjoining conference hall. The place was so full that the conference hall they couldn't get everybody into. I don't even know what the estimates were, but it was a lot of people. It was a huge point of interest in the church and outside of the Catholic Church in Oklahoma. That was an enormous event. They were hoping for something similar with this, as you will see from this reporting. So here's the official line, quote, "In 2 months, tens of thousands of Catholics will gather in Indianapolis for the 10th ever National Eucharistic Congress." As an aside, they'll get tens of thousands. We'll see how many they actually get, though. But in northern Minnesota this weekend, the local faithful got a taste of the impact a gathering dedicated to increasing knowledge and love of the Eucharistic Lord can have. More than 3,000 people attended the Star of North Eucharistic Congress May 17th to the 18th in Bemidji, Minnesota. Apologies for any Minnesotans watching. I have no idea how to say that one. Which featured testimonies on Eucharistic devotion, adoration and Mass, and catechetical talks from prominent Catholic speakers like Bishop Robert Barron and Father Mike Schmitz. Again, These two are probably your highest profile figures for the, we'll say, little c charismatic. I don't mean charismatic Catholicism. I mean charismatic as in affable, likable. They have the ability to draw people to them. These are your two probably most charismatic figures in the mainstream sort of conservative leaning church today. Those two figures. And they are your logical people to have running something like this to draw people in. The Congress was the prelude to the start of the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage's Marian Route, which begins at the nearby headwaters of the Mississippi River with Pentecost Sunday Mass May 19th en route to the National Congress in Indianapolis. With lay and clerical attendees from across the state, including each of Minnesota's 6 diocesan ordinaries, the event had the feeling of a Catholic version of the Great Minnesota Get-Together, as the state fair in the land of what 10,000 lakes is called. That's a really awful thing to compare it to, but okay. There's just a sense of the unity of the church in Minnesota and the sense of hopefulness about what we're going into, Bishop Andrew Cozens of the Diocese of Crookston told the Register. Attendees and speakers alike frequently noted the irony that the small rural Diocese of Crookston, with only 35,000 Catholics, would serve as the host of both the Regional Eucharistic Congress and the starting point of the Marian Route. By comparison, the starting points of the other pilgrimage routes, the Archdiocese of San Francisco and Hartford, the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas, have 500,000, 450,000, and 1 million Catholics, respectively. Archbishop Bernard Hebda, Ordinary of St. Paul in Minnesota, and Metropolitan of the Ecclesiastical Province comprising Minnesota and the Dakotas, called the gathering a beautiful sign of the wonderful things that God is doing in our church. It's clear to me that there are magnificent things going on in Minnesota, said the Pittsburgh native in his homily at Saturday morning Mass, adding that he was proud to tell people that he's from the Midwestern state. We'll stop there. So the official line is they got 3,300 people. They were wanting 4,000. Now they got to like 85% officially. Let me show you something else here. This is from Regina Magazine. Now, Regina Magazine is a pretty conservative outlet, but I wouldn't call them traditionalists. They're not hardline. They are not one to usually poke at things in the church. But they posted this on their Facebook. They posted this here. Report from the first Eucharistic Congress. Attended the first Eucharistic Congress event tonight in Bemidji, Minnesota. Barron was the keynote speaker to a sparse audience. Organizers expected 4,000 attendees, and less than 2,500 showed. Caterwauling guitars heard throughout. Rock concert-style t-shirts for sale. Day 2 of the Eucharistic Convention, still waiting to hear the specific list of action items that will help restore belief in the real presence. None presented, and they're spending $50 million on this. In other words, day 1, hardly anybody showed up. And they turned it into basically a concert. You had all the worst versions of modern Catholic music. We'll put Catholic in quotes. It's really Protestant style praise and worship rock music there. And then some testimonies. And testimonies are fine, but you need a plan for restoring belief in the real presence. Something that the bishops in the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops can do. The kind of thing that should be discussed, honestly, by the bishops behind closed doors and then presented to the public. I've given you my alternative way of doing a Eucharistic Congress. And here's how it would work. The USCCB meets behind closed doors, discusses a concrete way of restoring authentic belief in the real presence in the Eucharist, including, if necessary, action steps that would lead, if they failed, to bringing back altar rails and curbing communion in the hand, because those were the two most devastating things you could do to destroy real belief in the real presence, unequivocally. You do those things if necessary, and instead of having some big concert at a football stadium, which is where they're planning to do this in the summer, you have these your cathedrals in your dioceses. You tie it to radical thought here. Right now, there's a statue of Our Lady of Fatima going on a tour of North America. The last time this happened, I went to it in Portland, Oregon with Archbishop Sample. The place was packed. There was not enough place to sit for the Mass that they did there. You have it tied to that. That's how you do it. You could do it for significantly less than $50 million. Guarantee it. But that's not what they're doing. Instead, they're doing what looks like a concert. So we go to this. Also from the National Catholic Register. Their headline is Eucharistic Congress marks new dawn in Minnesota diocese once bruised by scandal. Only a few years after being rocked by a clergy McCarrick type problem that was swept away, the Diocese of Crookston is embracing its outsized role in the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage as a sign of healing and a moment of renewal. 100% happy to see a moment of renewal in that diocese, that they're moving past this stuff. And please, everybody, pray that their bishop does what is needed to move the diocese beyond that by not allowing men into the seminary who should not be there, by quietly getting rid of the priests who should not be there that he knows about, and actually teaching what needs to be taught on the sins that lead to a McCarrick kind of problem. Those are all very hard things. I know nothing about this bishop, but if he's having this effect here already, that's wonderful. But he needs your prayers and your support so he can have the courage to do what is necessary, because it will be extraordinarily unpopular. The healing of that diocese is wonderful. Having this Congress there, probably a good thing. But this Congress itself is a very questionable kind of thing. Not its intent. Obviously, I don't ever question the motives of, say, Bishop Barron, whom I disagree with on a lot of things. But you can tell when he speaks about the lack of belief in the real presence, it causes him pain and sorrow. I understand that. And if they can do something to restore belief in the real presence, more power to them. This is just not the mechanism to do it. Not these kind of rock concert things where first day 2,500 out of 4,000 people showed up, but not even that many. Here's the story. Again, they repeat to the 3,500 number here. I don't know why they're doing that. And note the date, the same day that Regina magazine was reporting this. They added 1,000 people. I don't know why. But this weekend, the eyes of Catholics across the country are on the Diocese of Crookston, but for far different reasons than the last time the rural Minnesota diocese was in the national spotlight. The local church of only 35,000 Catholics, the third smallest in the country, has the distinction of kicking off the entire National Eucharistic Pilgrimage with a 2-day Eucharistic conference featuring powerful catechists like Bishop Robert Barron and Father Mike Schmitz, celebratory fireworks over the lake, and Pentecost Sunday Mass at the Mississippi River headwaters to start the pilgrimage's Marian route. But only a few years ago, Crookston was embroiled in problems. In 2017, the diocese's then ordinary, Bishop Michael Hopner, was accused of sweeping away McCarrick kinds of problems. The Vatican launched an investigation into the bishop in 2019, the first in the world to use the new Vos Estis Lux Mundi guidelines. We'll pause here. These were guidelines issued by Francis for investigating and cracking down on the sweeping away of this problem and this persistent problem. You'll never find anybody who criticized them for doing that. What you'll find is criticism on the fact that they do this while bringing men like this into the Roman Curia and honestly sweeping a lot of the stuff away themselves. It's kind of a duplicitous thing. Having new guidelines is fine. Having them used, great. Not doing it consistently and duplicitously, that's a problem. The ordeal fractured the local church, scandalized the faithful, and eventually led to Bishop Hopner's resignation in 2021. Then it goes into some youth minister who gives their personal testimony. That's fine. That's fine. About their faith. Great. That's great. I don't think it's so much relevant to what we're talking about here, because they say they now with the picture up there, they had a caption that said 3,500. They said more than 3,500, and then they downgraded to 3,350 people registered to attend the Star of the Northeastern Congress, a number equivalent to 10% of the Catholic population of the diocese. And if they came from the diocese, that would be remarkable. Again, I wouldn't be live streaming about this today if that was the case. But instead, they came from neighboring states, the Dakotas, and Canada, which makes this a little more interesting, and other neighboring dioceses. In fact, you could presume that people came from across the state of Minnesota for this. You can tell that people are experiencing this sense of new life, says Crookston's Bishop Andrew Cozens. He told the Register regarding excitement across the diocese to be serving as the launch pad for the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage. It feels like a new day is dawning. Note that the excitement is that they are as the launch pad for the pilgrimage. Again, the pilgrimage is fine. Please give us more of that. Please. In fact, there's a Jubilee year coming, right? Francis has announced a Jubilee year. I went over that before, how there are indulgences for going on pilgrimages and all sorts of other things. And if you can't go to Rome for it, then Francis instructed the bishops to come up with places that the laity can go visit and do certain things and gain these indulgences. No criticism on that stuff, right? It sounds like, to me, it would be great to have these kinds of pilgrimages, public Eucharistic processions as part of a Jubilee year of mercy. Be a wonderful thing. But this is where their excitement is, to be the launch pad for this, is less than the Congress itself. And why would they be? Why would people be excited about that when we saw from Regina that it was a rock concert with the cringy kind of music that you hear at a lot of contemporary masses that are selling rock concert style t-shirts? Why would people be excited for that? All right, let me take a look here because somebody's Mark Becker says there was a second collection for outreach at your mass today. Ugh. Yeah. For my commentary more than reading documents. Well, I have to read documents. I have to. I just do. I don't want you to just trust what I'm saying about the news. I want you to see the news, right? And I show you these sources so you can see them. But the documents I do on the weekends, people should absolutely be watching those, because those are educational things that will help you with your faith. But some people have asked, why is Cardinal Tagle on this? Well, you see, here's the thing. Cardinal Tagle is, 2 years ago, Cardinal Tagle was considered the front runner to be Francis II at whenever the next conclave comes. And then he came into some, we'll call them managerial problems. He was given responsibility in some various things in Rome. And it didn't go well, to put it mildly. He was being openly criticized by even Bergoglians and that kind of thing. But in the last 6 months or so, suddenly we see Cardinal Tagle in the presence of Francis again, being his go-to person for a lot of things. And now he has been appointed as Francis' special envoy to the National Eucharistic Congress, which culminates in July. So our headline from Catholic News Agency is Pope Francis appoints Cardinal Tagle as special envoy to National Eucharistic Congress. And there's Cardinal Tagle. He's from the Philippines. He is, I think, much more charismatic than Francis. He is one of those kinds of people who is, from everything I've heard from people who've met him, a personally likable man. And he is absolutely a Bergoglian through and through. Completely supports Francis's heresies, all of it. And remember something I've reported to you before. Behind the scenes, the St. Gallen group are meeting for the next conclave. They are preparing already. And what they are looking for is a bishop, or a cardinal rather, who will continue the work of Francis, will be more likable than Francis, and will be 100% controllable by the St. Gallen types from behind the scenes. And that screams to me Tagle. Tagle is the kind who, with his managerial problems that he's had, will 100% need to hire people who are competent at running dicasteries and various programs for him if he becomes pope. He was the kind who will keep Fernandez in completely. If you get a moderate pope instead of Tagle or somebody like him, or a very conservative one, you will know, because within the first few days, they will get rid of Fernandez. They will get rid of the Tobins and the rest of them from the Roman Curia, and they'll start issuing documents rescinding their things. A moderate might not, but anybody else would. Tagle will keep those. Tagle or men like him would keep them in place. And Tagle is back in Francis's favor. That's why he's his personal envoy to this. This is him getting a sort of a get to know the prelates of North America tour. And, Tagle is loved by young people, and there's a very big focus on this Eucharistic Congress among young Catholics, and that's fine too. Having a focus on young Catholics to keep them from leaving the faith is laudable. And Tagle has demonstrated, he's usually the face at World Youth Day, to give you an idea. I know there's at least one person in the live chat there from the Philippines. Let me know how people view Cardinal Tagle in the Philippines. I know people will be overjoyed. I saw that comment earlier. But let me know how he's viewed there, and what people think of the critics of Tagle. Here's enough from the story. Again, the same day, May 18th, 2024. Pope Francis has appointed Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, pro-prefect for the Dicastery for Evangelization, as his special envoy to the National Eucharistic Congress in the United States, which will be celebrated in Indianapolis, July 17th to the 21st. The announcement was made Saturday by the Vatican. Tagle will celebrate the closing Mass of the 10th National Eucharistic Congress. Calling the appointment a gift to the Eucharistic Congress, Archbishop Timothy Broglio, president of the USCCB, said that Tagle's deep passion for apostolic mission rooted in the Eucharist is sure to have an inspirational impact for everyone attending the Congress, according to a USCCB press release. Broglio also pointed out that Tagle knows the U.S. well, as he earned a doctorate in theology at the Catholic University of America in 1991. This will be the first National Eucharistic Congress in over half a century and a pivotal event in the 3-year National Eucharistic Revival, leading into the final year of the revival, the year of missionary sending. End quote. And it goes on to talk about what this whole thing is about. So there's now ecclesiastical politics involved in this. And it makes sense for Francis to send an envoy. But the fact they chose Tagle, someone who's considered papabile, meaning that his peers will take him seriously as a candidate to be the next Roman pontiff, is telling. It's revealing his hand in this a little bit. Remember, most people assume there will be a conclave at some point in 2025 or 2026, maybe 2027. Cardinal Tagle is young enough that he will be around for that. Supich, not so much. If the thing happens in 2025, Cardinal Sarawa will age out of it. He won't be even taken seriously. He'll be too old. Burke will be too old. Most of the bishops that we read their public announcements from here will have aged out. But Tagle will be around, Hollerich, a few others. Now you're seeing them being given more and more duties. So they can be and given more and more face time with the other cardinals, so that they can be taken seriously for that. And this is a great opportunity for Tagle. But yes, I'm not surprised so much to see that first day of the Eucharistic Congress, it fell flat on its face. 2,500 people or less showed up, even though some of the reporting from the registers claims otherwise. People who were there say the place was noticeably vacant. All right, so let me take a look here because I know there's at least one person in the chat who is in the Philippines who can give us. Raven Ray says the reaction here in the Philippines will be explosive if he gets. Well, of course, if he gets elected pope, he will be. I mean, it would. I mean, in the U.S. even in the United States, if an American became pope, yeah, it would be just people would lose it, right? I mean, even a lot of non-Catholics would do cartwheels for that kind of thing. Chastity Marie says, in other words, only 20% of those that identify as Catholic attend Mass, and only 20% of them believe in the real presence. How can you be Catholic? That's the statistic that is very haunting. Again, because those polls that Cara polls, the Pew Research polls, they tend to ask and report on the numbers of the people who they say attend Mass regularly, and they have a very loose definition of who attends regularly too. That's a couple of times a month as their definition of regularly, instead of every Sunday and every holy day of obligation. External factors that keep them from Mass, notwithstanding illness, inclement weather, those kinds of things that nobody says is bad to miss Mass for generally. Why Tagle? Because of why Tagle for the Congress? Because I think there's church politics reasons for this. All right, folks, if there's any final thoughts in the chat here, get them to me now. Light has said something in the chat that I can't say and they put on the screen here, but he says that the Western culture has devoured the Philippines. Having said that, Our Lady of Guadalupe is also the patroness of that nation. Right, and there's some stuff from Catholic prophecy that is interesting that would suggest that there's the Pope who will finally pull off the consecration as requested by Fatima will be one who starts off as absolutely evil, but will have a radical conversion because of the state of the world, and he will finally pull it off. Maybe that's Tagle. Who knows? Our Lady of Guadalupe being the patroness of his country, and Our Lady, a lot of people say Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Akita. How many Our Ladies are there? The title means Our Lady of wherever the event was or some key aspect of the message. Our Lady of Good Hope, right? But it's the same Virgin Mary. So who knows? Who knows? And this is darn it, I have to review the whole live. Yeah, I have something to do very early this morning. That's why I started early. So, but let me know your final thoughts, any thoughts you may have in the comments, please. And make sure to, hit that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps the channel. And as always, pray for the church and for everybody we spoke about here. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.